Welcome in everybody to another episode of Play Like a Jet Live. Luke with you as always. We have Clay and we also have Kayla, our very own from Play Like a Jet and CBS. Guys, how you doing? We're going to touch the 53-man roster and everything that's going on. How's everyone doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. We spoke a good amount about the cuts yesterday. We're going to get into the waiver claims and and this team is a lot different from when we last spoke. Like 25 hours ago? So, I'm ready to get into it. How about you, Kayla?
I'm excited to be back. Thanks for having me again, guys. And I'm getting pretty excited for week one. That's really where my focus is at right now.
Yeah, it's exciting. We're less than 2 weeks away from week one. But before the Jets did that, they have to get their roster settled, and they did so over the last 2 days. Obviously, they came out with their initial 53 yesterday, but made significant changes to that. For anyone that missed those pickups on the waiver wire, they picked up 2 players. They picked up Tim Ward, who's the edge rusher who got let go from the Kansas City Chiefs. Thank you. They got Quincy Williams, the brother of Quinnen Williams from the Jags, the off-ball linebacker. He'll likely be depth at the will spot. They then got Sheldrick Redwine off. Technically, it was off free agency because he was more than 4 years of service. And then they brought back Griffin, Brown, and Niesman as well. They weren't so much cuts as they were allowing us to juggle the roster and keep others there. So, guys, I guess without any further ado, I wanted to start with you, Kayla. What was kind of your biggest surprise? Did you have any overarching thoughts? Was there someone you thought the Jets would pick up that they didn't? Who was the biggest surprise that they cut? Where was your head at on all the Jets moves?
Yeah, so I think one thing I was looking for, and I think everyone was an addition at tight end. I was surprised to see that there was really no splash in terms of a name that I was expecting, I guess. I thought maybe Jacob Hollister would be in the running. There's a couple guys out there that are available, and obviously we're in need, especially after cutting Griffin and Daniel Brown. And I have seen that they're thinking about re-signing them. I don't really know what's going on there. But I was definitely expecting that to be a little bit more of a shakeup, especially with Herndon being traded as well. So I was kind of just waiting for a move, and one didn't come. So it's kind of tough to say like what that's going to look like going forward. And then, of course, also there's the cut of Bless Austin. I was rooting for the guy. I'm not surprised by it necessarily. I mean, maybe it's a shocking move since he was the most experienced corner on the roster. But at the end of the day, he didn't really live up to expectation. And so those kind of guys get cut. I was hoping that it would pan out for him. I was rooting for him this season, but it is what it is, and we're going to have to move on and see what comes next.
Yeah, Clay, what about you?
I mean, kind of sticking with both of those. I guess not. It wasn't even like that we didn't bring in a tight end. It was that we actually traded Chris Herndon. I think that was the biggest surprise. We all expect him to make the team. Not even thinking about trades. Just when it came down to cuts, no one except for that one person that tweeted it expected Chris Herndon to be released this week. So to see that he actually got traded was a bit of a surprise. But we actually got a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon. Yeah, we gave up a 6th-rounder, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really care about that. We got another pick that could be in the top 120. So we have 2 1st-rounders, 2 2nd-rounders, a 3rd-rounder, and 2 4th-round picks in this upcoming draft. We thought we had a lot of picks last year. Like that doesn't even compare to what we have in this upcoming draft. Granted, like we might move away from some of those picks to get a really good player, who knows, and that still remains to be seen. But the fact that we actually do have those picks just opens up a lot of possibilities for this roster, and I'm super excited for next draft season. But we still got to get to this season. And then the cornerback position, Bless Austin getting released was a bit of a shock. I was expecting Isaiah Dunn or Pinnock to get released, and then maybe they can try to stash one of them on the practice squad. I mean, technically they could put Bless Austin on the practice squad, but I doubt that's going to happen. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't like Bless, but you got to remember, like his rookie year, coming off an ACL injury, 2 ACL injuries, he actually wasn't that bad. Granted, we didn't have anything else good opposite him, but he really wasn't terrible. He was a fine player and someone that you would hope would be at least a depth piece later on. Granted, 2020 wasn't as good for him. He kind of struggled throughout the year. He got benched a couple times, but I still saw him as a player that could be a depth piece, considering in 2021 he was going into camp as a starter it still wasn't a great look. And I think that's what made him look worse than what he actually was. If he was, say, cornerback 5 on our team, I really don't think anyone would be like, oh, whatever, like screw him, whatever. No, like I think he is a capable replacement cornerback in this league. I don't think he's a starting cornerback by any means, but I do think he's young enough to where he can continue to get better. I think he's 24, 25.
Yeah, I think he's 25.
25.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not ruling out the rest of his career. I think he can be a good player and play another 5, 6, 7, 8 years in this league. He's only going into year 3. And now we don't have a single cornerback that will actually play cornerback, not special teams, actually play cornerback that has been in the league for more than one NFL season, which is mind-blowing to me. I don't know if we actually go into week 1 like this, but all signs are pointing that way because they're going with the young guys.
Yeah. Here's where I'm at with Bless Austin. The last 2 weeks, I've been lobbying for Brandon Eccles to start. I think he's a better athlete. I think he plays the ball better in the air, and I think he makes less mistakes. But in saying that, I think Bless Austin would have been better on the roster than Isaiah Dunn. Clearly, though, Isaiah Dunn has impressed Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, and his staff because he hasn't looked good in the 2 preseason games. Frankly, he was beaten nearly every time the ball was thrown his way. The public obviously didn't like the perception that gave of Isaiah Dunn, but they paid him a lot of money for an undrafted free agent. They liked him. They coveted him at the position in the draft process. They obviously had a 6th or 7th round grade on him, so they went with him over Bless Austin, and that's the direction of the franchise. Guys, I also wanted to touch on some of the other people we thought maybe were deserving of a roster spot. I kind of had 3 names personally. The first one I'll throw out is Vincent Smith. I know we touched on it yesterday, Clay. I thought Vincent Smith versus Jeff Smith and Braxton Berrios was an interesting discussion because those 2 guys are more slot guys. You already have Crowder. You already have Elijah Moore. I thought Vincent Smith was left out. Kayla, you mentioned a name, though, before we jumped on that I thought was a good one, sticking with offense.
Yeah, Josh Adams. I mean, I think that they had 5 pretty similar backs in terms of capability of being reliable and getting some positive yardage. But I don't think any one of the 5 is like a huge standout. And I don't think any one of the 5 was really far below the rest. So that kind of made it tough when it came to the cuts. And I think what it really came down to was who was a draft pick. I think Ryan was going to get that spot because he was drafted by the team and they want their draft picks to be out there on the field. And I understand that. I hope that Josh Adams gets a shot to play in some games this year. I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility at all. And he had some great games last year when he had the opportunity to get in. So it's not that he's not capable. I don't think that the Jets wanted to let him go because they know he's capable. So stash him on the practice squad. If somebody gets hurt, you can bring him up. I think that's kind of what their plan is. I would have really liked to see him on the roster, but hey, if this is the next best thing, then I'll take it.
Hey, what about yourself? There's a few more on offense, maybe defensively. There were a couple of guys I was surprised that were cut. Did you have anyone else that you thought was going to make the roster that ended up missing out?
Well, actually, sticking with the just to piggyback on that for a second, I think another reason why they might have kept P. Ryan not only because he was a Gator and a draft pick of theirs, but it was the fact that I do think he also provides a little bit in pass protection. He could be a receiver out of the backfield where I don't think Josh Adams has really been used in that, whether it was Notre Dame, Philadelphia, or New York. I don't think either of those 2 things were what he's been asked to do. So, excuse me. So I think that probably has something to do with it as well. And also, Piron had a really good camp. Going into the preseason games, people were talking very highly of him. It seemed like he was the one that was kind of breaking away in those practices leading up to preseason. Obviously, preseason, I think he had a yards per carry under 3, but it's preseason, and I don't really care about that, to be honest. So, I think that's kind of the reason why they went with P. Ryan. On the defensive side, I don't want to say I was shocked or surprised, really, but Hamilcar Rashid.
I totally agree with you there.
Keep doing it, but I gotta learn how to say his name. I feel bad. But yeah, I guess I was just a little surprised just because of the lack of depth we had at the position. But again, maybe they knew that they can get him on the practice squad. And I saw a tweet out there from one of the beat reporters saying that it was probably better for him to be on the practice squad, to just sit and learn and watch and just not be thrown out there. Which I'm okay with. I'm glad that we got him back. I'm glad that we got Kenny Yobo back too. Speaking of another guy who's not shocked, but kind of shocked. Yeah, I guess that, but we got him back. We brought in Tim. Reminding me of his name, Tim
Ward.
Ward, yes. And he's shined quite a bit, and I'm sure we'll get to him in a second. But yeah, I guess Hamilcar. I'm just gonna say that Hamilcar is the one I was I guess a little bit shocked with on the defensive side, outside of Bless.
Yeah, for sure. I think that summed it up pretty well. Obviously, Niesman was let go originally. He was brought back on the 53. That was surprising to me. We did have Ashton Davis end up on the short-term IR today, which he had been activated from the pup. It looked like he was good to go, but apparently he's not.
I actually had one more. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Dawkins too. Noah
Yep.
Dawkins. I was surprised about him being cut just because we didn't have any linebackers. I mean, after he was released and all the other guys that I don't even know their names at this point. We only had Blake Cashman as a backup linebacker. So the fact that they let Noah Dawkins walk, I was actually a little bit surprised about that because he was getting quite a bit of snaps in the preseason. But maybe they just didn't like what he saw. And now we got I guess a familiar face, somewhat. Depends on how you look on it. But I'm sure we'll get to that in just any second now.
Yeah. So obviously the Jets decided, as you mentioned, that they liked Tim Ward over Rashid right now. That was the decision they went in. They liked Redwine over Hassel, who was let go. He's someone who had an opportunity to make the roster. And then the guy you were just alluding to then, I'm pretty sure, Clay, was Quincy Williams. Yeah. And he's the direction they went in over a couple of the linebackers. Milo, the undrafted free agent they picked up. I think he was out of Illinois or somewhere like that. It's escaped me off the top of my head. And then, as you mentioned, who are we talking about then at linebacker? Sorry, it's the names escaped me.
What, Quincy Williams or?
No, they got cut.
Oh, Noah Dawkins.
Noah Dawkins, thank you. So, look, I don't know, Kayla, if you've come across these guys too much. Did you have any thoughts about the guys the Jets added, any of those three guys?
I mean, I think the obvious one that stands out, it's going to be recognizable as a fringe roster guy, is Quinn's brother, Quincy. I mean, and those are obviously easy adds in the sense of, they're going to come in and be able to get along with the guys in the room. I mean, unless they hate each other and we don't know, obviously they're going to walk in, they're going to feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that there's a spot, like there's somebody that they know really well in there. And I'm sure part of what Saul and Douglas are trying to do is keep the roster a cohesive unit and people that are going to get along and work well together. And that should be one that sticks out right away. And I think that's kind of the move that they were going with. And I'm assuming they also like what they see on the field from him. Obviously, like I said before, like these fringe guys, you don't see a ton of them. There's not a lot of them to watch and not a lot of big plays and highlights that you can think of when it comes to these specific players. So obviously it's guys that are going to gel, guys that are going to fit.
Clay?
Yeah, Quincy, he's an athletic dude. Obviously, we know Quinnen is very athletic for his size. Quincy's a bit smaller. Obviously, he plays linebacker. But he's another athletic guy, and we know that Salah wants to have athleticism at the linebacker position because they're going to be moving all over the field. So I don't know how much playing time he actually gets. I'm assuming he'll be linebacker 5, maybe 4 if he beats out Cashman. But excuse me. And of course, that's before Gerard Davis comes back from his injury. Yeah. So I'm curious to see what happens there. I mean, I know, and speaking as a brother and having three brothers that I've played sports with, I think it's good and bad. Maybe get on each other's nerves a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think it'd be incredible to play with your brother, especially at the professional level. So 100%. I think that'll be okay. And I'm actually excited for Tim Ward. And granted, I hate box score scouting, but I'm going to do it here with Tim Ward. In the 3 preseason games, he had 3 sacks, 2 in the first one, and in his only NFL game, he had a sack. So he is sacked. It was Justin Herbert, Kellen Mond. That one was a forced fumble. Trey Lance and Josh Rosen. So I don't know. I thought that was just a fun fact, but no, I mean, he's obviously productive. He's done a good job when he has been on the field. It's just that he hasn't been on the field. So I'm curious to see how much playing time he actually gets with this team. And we got to remember too, Kyle Phillips, I'm assuming, is he on PUP?
Yeah, he got transferred to PUP yesterday.
Okay, so all right, so he'll be back we have a bye week 6, so week 7. So yeah, the first 5 games, we'll have to figure out what the rotation is on the defensive end position. But he will come back, and I'm assuming that's when, depending on what Ward does, I'm assuming that's when Ward will either get cut or something will happen.
Yeah, we're going to touch on some predictions today, guys, as well. You just heard Clay's first one. He thinks that Tim Ward will have 17 sacks this year. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. We'll see how that goes. Just a reminder, guys, make sure you're following everything that U Stadium's doing, as well as Play Like a Jet Live. If you love our content, we're accepting super chats, super stickers, all of that stuff. The guys at U Stadium did an incredible job yesterday with the 12-hour live stream for Hurricane Ida. They raised, I think, nearly $4,000, which was incredible. Auctioned some great things. So well done to Nick and everyone involved with the team, Frankie, Splash, and everyone that jumped on the 12-hour stream. We were there and that was fantastic. Make sure you sub to their YouTube channel as well as ours over at Play Like a Jet. Jumping into the roster now, guys, we're going to have a look at the offensive side of the ball first. We'll bring up the 53-man roster. First surprise to me was probably that the Jets carried 7 receivers. The Shanahan scheme usually carries 5 to 6 receivers, obviously having Jeff Smith as the 7th receiver. Kayla, when you look at the positions and the depth and the backup, is there one spot you look at and go, that group concerns me more than the rest?
Well, I think as I started with, tight end. I mean, it's always been, it's a long-term problem for the Jets, and I don't think that it's really improved, to be totally honest with you. I think that we're looking at a group that's league-wide going to look pretty weak when stacked up against other depth charts. I mean, I'm definitely concerned about the line. I think it's going to be a lot better than last year, but even just looking at it, there's not a whole lot of depth, and I don't know about reliable depth in this case. So, I mean, I'm pretty excited to watch wide receivers. I'm pretty excited to watch running backs because I think they're going to be pretty solid. I think they're a very solid group. And like you said, not big names that jump off the page, but all guys that are going to be pretty consistent. So I'm excited to watch that. Obviously, we're all excited about Wilson, but yeah, I would say my biggest areas of concern are just going to be stability and consistency on the offensive line, and then whatever is going on at tight end, because I'm not sure what they're going for here.
Yeah, piggybacking off what you said, Kayla, I was speaking to a friend this morning, and it's a lack of enthusiasm around the tight end position. They have serviceable bodies there. They can block a little bit, but really there's no upside in that group, outside maybe of Trayvon Wesco if he has a good year of fullback, but that's been particularly hopeful. And then the depth on the offensive line. Look, George Fant being a swing tackle, or look, maybe he beats out Morgan Moses, who knows? But whoever is that swing tackle for the Jets, they're a top 5 swing tackle. That's fantastic. But Dan Feeney and Chuma Edoga are barely NFL players at this point. And that is definitely concerning. Clay, what about you? When you look at the roster, now that it's set in stone for week 1 or close enough to it, what are your overall thoughts on the Jets offense?
I don't know what you guys are watching because all of Zach Wilson's touchdowns are to tight ends. No receivers. So that is our elite position on the offense. No, all jokes aside, the tight end position is, of course, kind of worrisome, especially after we give up Chris Herndon. Granted, like I said before, I like the trade. I think it worked out just because Herndon was going to be gone after this year. I don't care what anyone tells me. Yeah. So the fact that you get a 4th-round pick for him, and then Tyler Kroft, he's a good blocking tight end, which you need in this offense. And we're going to be running a lot of – I'm sure we're going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets. And with Kroft, Griffin, and maybe Wesco in the backfield, you can be playing 22. So I don't think it's terrible in that aspect, but in the passing game, it just leaves a lot to be desired. But unlike previous years, we do have receivers like Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, who everyone is so excited about, including myself. We hope Denzel Mims can take a step forward. We'll see what happens with Jamison Crowder. Obviously, he wasn't in practice today, and I don't know about you guys, I don't think anyone said why he wasn't at practice today.
He had a groin injury, apparently. A groin niggle that they think he can still play week 1, but it's something to watch for sure.
Okay. And we know that they like Keelan Cole, but maybe that's why they're carrying 7 receivers. I mean, now Jamison Crowder's is banged up. Elijah Moore's obviously been banged up. Denzel Mims has been banged up. So that's three of the 7 receivers that have dealt with some, and even Barrios has dealt with some injuries. So maybe that's why they're carrying 7. But yeah, the tight end position and then the interior offensive line, as Kayla mentioned, it's definitely worrisome. Dan Feeney being the only backup.
That's scary.
I wish they could have brought in someone from those cuts yesterday. I liked Jack Anderson, as I mentioned. He could have been a guy that could play center or guard in this outside zone scheme. So, yeah, it's a little worrisome because the second someone goes down, I don't know who's going to step in because know if they like Fant at guard. I don't think they can put Adoga at guard when he's healthy. So yeah, I guess I'm a little worried about the offensive line, but I still think moves could be made in the next week and a half.
I kind of think they have to be, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I feel kind of bad for Joe Douglas because I actually think he did a fairly good job acquiring offensive line talent. I liked bringing Alex Lewis back on a pay cut as that depth. I think Alex Lewis as a starter is a well below average starter, but as a depth piece and a backup, he's more than capable. He obviously retires. He had some off the field issues that caught up with him last year as well. And then you have Cam Clark, who everyone was so excited to see play last year. He never dressed. And then this year, obviously, he's on the IR or the long-term pup maybe, but that's obviously disappointing. Maybe not so optimistic is the defensive side of the ball. I think for the first time in maybe a decade, the Jets are more excited to watch the offensive side of the ball than the defensive side. And if you look at it, the Jets are really short on the inside. I think the linebacker position, there's only 5 linebackers on the roster right now, and it's a shallow position with 2 rookies starting. That's got to be an area of concern. Looking at it, Clay, outside of the defensive end and the defensive line, what position do you feel best about on the Jets roster, Clay?
I heard you. Actually, to be honest, like I don't think I'm like fanboying here, but I'm gonna go with slot. I'm gonna go with Michael Carter II and Javelin Guidry. I mean, obviously everyone knows that it's not even a bit at this point. Like I really like Michael Carter II, and and what Javelin Guidry has shown in his limited snaps. He's actually impressed too. So like I really do think they have something that they can build off of at the nickel corner spot. And then obviously we know what Marcus May can do on the back end. I'm not really worried about wherever he's lined up, whether it's free or strong. I'm not worried. But I'm gonna go with the nickel corner spot.
I think it says so much about the Jets defense that the position we feel best about has 150 pass coverage snaps in the NFL. That is concerning for the Jets defense heading into week 1. Kayla, Clay touched on the slot position. How do you feel about the safety group? Because I think obviously there's 2 really capable starters. There's not a lot of depth. Ashton Davis is on the IR. What are your thoughts about the safety group? Because I think they have a chance to be really good.
Yeah, I absolutely think that they could be good. I mean, I like the addition of Joyner. Obviously, we haven't seen a lot of him, but I think that was a good signing. And kind of going along with what you said, I think that the defense kind of got a little bit screwed like the offensive line did with the signings that were made that were good signings, but then now we're stuck with a bunch of injuries or otherwise issues. So, I mean, the safeties I think will be great, but this is something that I've always thought, and especially since I know we don't want to name him here, but Jamal Adams. Ever since everything started with him about wanting to be paid, that's kind of a luxury position, I guess, to me. Yeah. Like the safeties, they could be great, but that's not going to change the game for us. That's going to be a position that, okay, great, that's something to add on to our really good defense. They're not really going to hold it down entirely. And Jamal Adams, I think, did a great job for the Jets in that position, but there was a reason that the defense still wasn't good. I mean, he was making incredible plays, but safety's a luxury spot. They can't really be in every place at once like Jamal can be. So, I mean, maybe the safeties will show up and make some really big plays, but that's not going to be the saving grace of the defense. I'm personally really excited to watch the defensive tackles. I think that I'm still very set with like how I think those guys will play. I think that that's going to be a very reliable part of the defensive line. The ends, we'll see, but the tackles, I'm all in on. I think they're going to be great.
Definitely.
Yes, I thought we weren't including the defense tackles. That's my pick too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's fair enough. I want to do a quick fire round now. Obviously, the defensive line is going to be a rotation, but if you had to say who gets more snaps week 1, Kayla, I'll start with you. Bryce Huff or Shaq Lawson?
I think Bryce Huff. Maybe that's a hot take, but I think it's going to be Bryce Huff.
Okay, Clay?
I think so too. I think he provides something that the rest of the defensive ends don't, and that's just speed. Like he has a lot of speed off the edge. He has a quick get off, and I don't think the other guys can really provide that. Maybe Tim Ward can. I haven't seen him, but but between those two, I think Huff is going to get more snaps.
I think he also gets the advantage too on being like the homegrown guy.
Yeah.
I think that'll help him too.
And Robert Sullers mentioned that a ton in his press conference. For those who have listened, he keeps mentioning putting in time and investing time in players that are already here, that know the scheme, and that's going to be an advantage for him. I assume he'll start in the 9-tech spot outside Quinn Williams on the right-hand side of the line. I think you'll then get a good mixture of John Franklin Myers on the outside opposite, and then obviously Shaq Lawson rotating in as well. With the linebacker spot now, let's talk about the Will linebacker spot. Would you start Hamza Nasruddin if you were Robert Saleh? Does he have any other options, Clay? What do you think there?
I will say I really liked Blake Cashman coming out of Minnesota, but the dude just can't stay healthy. And when he has been on the field, he obviously that athleticism, his shows up. He is very athletic, but he's struggled in pass coverage. He's struggled with tackles, and he might be a good. He could potentially be a good special teamer or just a solid rotational piece. Because if he can stay healthy, maybe he can actually progress. But he hasn't been able to stay healthy. I think just stick with Hamza, and just go with the young guys. Obviously, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, like we already talked about the cornerback position. We could potentially have 2 rookies starting in that secondary. Then you got Bryce Huff in the front, who's young. Quentin Williams is only in year 3. Obviously, Jamie he's most likely gonna start in place for Gerard Davis. So we have so many young guys. Just roll with it. Like, what's one more at this point?
Yeah. Kayla, Clay mentioned the cornerback position. Obviously, Bless Austin got cut. We already mentioned that at the top of the show. Who would you start if you were Robert Saleh? Would you start Brandon Eccles, Jason Pinnock, or Isaiah Dunn?
I'm going to say Eccles, just because I think we've seen the most consistency from him so far. That's probably the guy that you want to put out there, especially in like a game scenario. We look at the preseason snaps, and whatever they're seeing in practice from Isaiah Dunn, that's cool and all. But I would like to see him do it against an opponent before he gets a start or something crazy like that. So I would say Eccles. He'd be my go-to. I think though that I'd like to see multiple people get in at that spot in the first game. I don't think that this season is going to be anything other than a big experiment at corner. So you're going to have to try and test out guys and see what works. And if Eccles plays well, cool, let him ride it out, maybe give him the first half. Obviously, you're going to want to win the game depending on what the score is. You got to play some other guys too, because if this is really a true competition of like, let's build up our young guys, then we want to see multiple dudes out there getting time and getting the opportunity to make some plays.
Yeah, Mateus just talked about Eccles hurting his shoulder. You might have caught that in the last preseason game. He was trying to make a tackle, and I think it was actually Hamza Nasruddin hit him in the shoulder. He was injured. But Robert Saleh did say yesterday after practice that he should be good to go for week 1. And I think the Jets knew that releasing Bless Austin. I don't think they would have released him outright if they thought there was still a question mark about Brandon Eccles. Clay, anything to add on the corner position?
No, I'm just ready to see what happens, and I'm just hoping one can just step up. It's just, that's all I can say.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's look forward now. Let's go into predictions for the 2021 season. I have been pretty vocal that I took the Jets over 6, so I was expecting 7 to 8 wins originally. Now with the Carl Lawson injury, I feel a lot worse about that, and I feel like 6 wins is really going to be difficult. I hope the Jets can win more than 5 games and at least get money back. But right now, Kayla, if you had to guess what the Jets' record will be at the end of the season, let's jump right into it. What do you think the Jets finish 2021 with a record of?
All right. So my original prediction was 7 and 10, and I'm going to have to knock it down a little bit. I'm going to say 5 wins. Well, I hate to say that. I think that like 6 is not by any means out of the realm of possibility. But what I'm looking for this season is not necessarily for star players to come out of the woodwork. I'm looking for coaching decisions to win games. That's what I want to see. And so however many wins that can get us, we'll see how great of a coach Robert Saleh is. Because I think after watching that last preseason game, he was in it the entire game. There was no quit at any point. And I think that's how you win over this group of Jets fans that just watched 2 years of Adam Gase. I think that we're going to win games based on his decision-making, not necessarily the skill that separates the Jets from another team. I think that's going to be a great year to try things. And you know what? If he makes a call that loses a game, I'm more than fine with that. If it was trying out something that maybe could work again in the future, or just giving it a shot, because I'm sick and tired of watching really conservative offense and poor time management. Like, I don't want to see that anymore. I want to see taking some risks. I want to see great clock management, which I think Salah already has shown that he can do. And I want to be genuinely trying to win every single game. If you fall short sometimes, that's fine. But I'm hoping for 6 wins. I'm thinking 5. And it's not being too generous, I know. But, I do have a lot of faith in Salah, and I think we're going to watch all close games.
All right, Clay, hit me. What have you got?
All right, so there's a theory that every first-year head coach with the Jets does better than they're supposed to. So I'm going to say they get 6-7 wins still. I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm going through, obviously there's not quarters of a schedule anymore because it's a stupid 17th game. But going through the first 4, Panthers, Patriots, Broncos, Titans, I think they can get at least one of them. Falcons, Patriots, Bengals, Colts, they can get one of those. Looking at the Patriots, Bengals, Colts. Then the next 4, Bills, Dolphins, Texans, Eagles. They can get Texans and Eagles, I think, and maybe get one of the Bills, Dolphins. And then finishing off Saints, Dolphins, Jags, Bucks, Bills. Maybe the I think the Jags, and maybe get lucky with another. So I think they can get 6 wins still. Think about it. Adam Gase in that roster the first year got 7 wins, especially after starting off what was it, 1-6?
Yeah.
It was 1-7.
1-7.
Yeah, it was 1-7. And then last year, obviously they ended up 2-14, winning against the Browns and the Rams. When we had nothing to play for outside the first pick and I guess a single win. But they won 2 games. They probably should have won another 2 or 3 if we're being honest. So the fact that they had a chance to win 5 games, I think this team will have a chance to win 6-7 games because it's a more talented roster. It's a more talented coaching staff, and it's a much easier schedule. Let's not forget that too. They had a really tough schedule last year, and this schedule is actually not that bad. I think we have one of the easier schedules in the league, maybe top 10. Obviously, this is just on paper and based on last season, but I don't know. I'm still feeling optimistic. I think they're gonna. I'm gonna stick with my original and in a different way, but I think it's gonna be 7 wins.
I love it. So you did make a good point, though, Clay. Last year, they could have beaten New England. I think it was Monday Night Football, might have been Thursday Night Football. They could have won that game with Joe Flacco at quarterback. They could have beaten Denver with Sam Darnold, had that long touchdown run. They had a game where they held Buffalo touchdownless. They didn't have a touchdown. Yeah. I think that was in Buffalo, and we nearly won that somehow, despite having Adam Gase and Sam Darnold not having a great game either. So I think you can find a way to manufacture wins, but it's definitely going to be more difficult, especially with a young secondary when Carl Lawson's not there and that pass rush goes from elite to good. That's a big drop. So I think I'm going to say 6 wins. I'll split you guys down the middle. I think 6-11 is probably where the Jets end up, which isn't a bad season. I think it all is just, you want to see the offense play well and you don't really care about what happens defensively. That's kind of my mindset. Look, obviously, if you can have Bryce Hall emerge as a CB2 that's going to be an above average corner on the outside for the rest of his career with the Jets, that's great. But you want to see Zach Wilson and those guys thrive and survive. So let's talk a little bit more about the offense and what we expect. Let's talk about the receiving group. Who do you think, I'll start with you, Kayla. Who do you think who do you think has the most receiving yards and touchdowns for the Jets? Because I think a couple of weeks ago, before Elijah Moore went down and we saw Corey Davis really break out, that was a really difficult question. Do you think it's going to be Corey Davis? Where's your mind at with those 2 stats?
So I think it's going to depend on how healthy Elijah Moore can stay. I think that there was a very obvious connection between him and Zach from the get-go, but also Corey Davis has league experience and he's obviously a reliable target and he's shown that. I think it's more likely that Corey Davis comes out on top, but I don't think there's going to be a huge gap between the 2 of them. I think that it'll be pretty close. As long as Moore can stay on the field, and obviously if Davis can stay on the field, if injuries don't alter the snaps, then I think that the 2 of them will be pretty close neck and neck, but Davis will get the edge being the tried and true reliable guy.
How about this, Clay? Denzel Mims leads the Jets in touchdowns.
Hey, are you going with that?
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
All right. I like it because I think I might one up you on this one. Tyler Kroft leading the team in touchdowns.
Oh my God!
I don't want to see that.
No, I mean, heck, I don't really care who leads the team in touchdowns as long as Zach can just get touchdowns. We saw 9 touchdowns out of Darnold last year. As long as we can get double digits out of Zach, no, maybe a little more double digits, but but no, I mean, I think Corey Davis will lead the team in receptions. I think he'll lead the team in receptions and yards, and then I think Elijah Moore. I'm going to go with Elijah Moore with getting touchdowns because even throughout camp, and granted it was camp, he was getting – I saw a lot of tweets that he was getting the touchdowns in the red zone. It wasn't just like 20, 30, 40-yard bombs. He was actually inside the 10-yard line getting touchdowns because he was just beating people off the line. So I'm going to go with Elijah Moore leading the team in touchdowns if he stays healthy.
Hey, I'm going to throw this in there. Elijah Moore is going to lead the team in yards after catch.
I feel like that is a good bet. I like that one a lot. I like
maybe
that.
Jeff Smith.
Yeah, that'll be. Something's gone seriously wrong if Jeff Smith's seeing the field. He's probably the fourth slot receiver on the depth chart right now. So let's hope that Clay, you are obviously you're joking, but let's hope that doesn't come to fruition. So that's a little bit about the Jets receivers. I feel pretty good about them. They're a really deep group. Clay, you mentioned Tyler Kroft. There's a chance for him to see the field a lot now with Herndon being traded. So we'll see how that plays out. Talking about the running backs, who do you think gets the most carries and the most touchdowns, Clay?
Obviously, this depends so much on injuries.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna go with Ty Johnson. I'm actually excited to see what he can bring.
Yeah,
obviously we know he has explosiveness. He's got some pretty thick legs too. Low center of gravity, and I think he runs with a purpose too, and just. I don't know. I'm excited. I think he's going to lead the team in carries. I'm going to go. He's going to lead the team in carries and yards. And I'm going to say Tevin Coleman leads in touchdowns.
Okay, Kayla, I saw you nodding when Clay was talking about Tevin Coleman about Tyler Johnson. Do you think he's the guy that's going to get the lion's share of the carry and the touchdowns?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he'll absolutely lead the team in carries. I don't really think that's much of a question at this point. I mean, of course, barring injury. I do think that they're going to try to showcase Michael Carter a little bit just because, that's our draft pick guy that everyone's excited about. So I'm sure he'll see the field a lot. I think, though, that touchdowns is really anyone's guess. It all depends on how the rotation shakes out and who ends up being dependable in that spot. So it's going to be interesting to see how they end up using and what kind of splits they use these running backs at.
Honestly, Clay, I can't believe. Sorry, let me just say this quickly. Yeah. I can't believe you didn't say that Michael Pirine was going to lead it in touchdowns because he actually got some red zone carries last year and finished a couple of times, and he could. He's been pretty good within the tackles and between the tackles throughout the training camp. So look, obviously, I'm joking a little bit, but I think to some extent there's an opportunity for him to carve out a role as a red zone back.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think Pirine could. Like Kayla said, I think any of them could actually lead in touchdowns. Yeah. And kind of going back to Michael Carter, because we have to talk about him for a second. I do think, no matter the record, say they're 2 games over 500, 5 games under 500, I think Michael Carter will get more carries the further the season goes along. I think the further we get into November, December, he's going to start getting more and more touches just because they're going to want to see what they got in this guy. And I'm excited with him too. I mean, I don't think Coleman will be on the team after this year. Maybe he's on the team for one more year. Pirine, we still got 2 more years of him after this on his contract, but still remains to be seen. Michael Carter's not going anywhere. So I'm almost positive that he will get, as long as he's healthy, he'll get more carries once November and December come around.
Yeah, I wanted to say one more thing about the offense. I saw a comment pop up on the screen from John, and he was talking about how Corey Davis is going to have to face number 1 receivers this year, and how that could cause him, number 1 corners, and how that could cause him to take a drop in production. I think this is twofold. I think, first of all, when he was in Tennessee last year, Ryan Tannehill looked for A.J. Brown more, and they schemed things up for A.J. Brown. That's just what you do around your best offensive player. I think this year you're going to see Mike LaFleur scheme things around the strengths of Corey Davis. So he's actually going to have an opportunity to be the focal point of the offense. And even though he will see the better corners, I think that's a huge win. And then talking about Stephon Gilmore, it looks like he's going to be out for both of the Jets' clashes against New England, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, I guess he's on the PUP list, right? So
I think he can miss the first 7 weeks, right? Or six games.
First 6 weeks. So
6 weeks?
If they have by week 6, then he would just miss the first 5 games.
Okay.
So I guess he could, his first game back could be against us, but that still remains to be seen. But I mean, look, if you look around the league, every number 1 receiver goes against number 1 corners.
Yeah.
So like, if you're a good receiver, you're a good receiver. And Corey Davis, he's progressed. Obviously, last year was his best year, and he is the number 1 receiver on this team. So you'd think, like, he's going against better corners, but he's going to be, like you said, more of a focal point of this offense. So I think he'll crack 1,000 yards, and this will be his best statistical season.
Yeah, it's also worth noting, though, I mean, the AFC East has tough corners. Like, all the ones are tough matchups, and maybe he won't necessarily be ready for that, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I have all the faith in him and his skill and his ability, and of course, the scheme offensively, I think they're going to do a great job working it around him, but it's definitely worth noting, like, hey, he's facing 3 really tough guys if he does face Gilmore, but still.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe Elijah Moore steps up and the Bills want to put Trey White on him instead of Corey Davis and kind of just like bracket him a little more rather than just play straight up man to man with their best corner. So a lot still remains to be seen. Obviously, I'm just excited, and I think we all are just talking about this offense. Like, we haven't been able to talk about an offense like this in a while, so it's just exciting.
Yeah. The one exciting thing to talk about defensively is the defensive line. So let's talk about sacks now. Last year, who led the Jets with sacks last year? Quinnen Williams did with 7.5 sacks. I think it was 7 sacks, depending. I don't understand how there can be a half sack. I understand it, but if you get to the quarterback, why should you be penalized because your teammate also did his job well? Look, it's never going to change, but that's a different discussion. Who leads the Jets in sacks? Quinnen Williams has to be the overwhelming favorite. You had Shaq Lawson had 4 sacks last year. John Franklin Myers had a productive season with pressures. Do you think, Kayla, that Quinnen is the clear guy that leads the Jets? Is Bryce Huff a smoky pick? What do you think there?
I think you'll probably see a pretty even split between like Bryce Huff and John Franklin Myers, whoever ends up playing on the outside. I think they're going to get to the quarterback more than the outside players did last season. But I do think that, especially with Carl Lawson being out, Quinnen goes back to being the overwhelming favorite because I would have picked Lawson hands down, no questions asked. But with him out, I don't think that there's another clearly dominant force like Quinnen that's going to get to the quarterback like that.
Yeah. Clay, who's first and second? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, for first, it has to be Quinnen Williams. Just he's going to be the one constant on this defensive line. Defensive ends, either side, they're going to rotate like crazy. The other defensive tackle position is going to rotate like crazy. Quinnen Williams is going to play, obviously, majority of the snaps on the defensive line. So you got to take him, and he's the most talented. So you just got to kind of you have to go with the odds with Quinnen Williams. So he's going to be the number 1 leader, I would assume. And then number 2, I'm going to go with Shaq Lawson. I think it's going to be Shaq. I think they're going to put him in a position where he can just pin his ears back and get to the quarterback. And he has – I don't know. I'm not super excited about any of those picks, but I'm going to go with Shaq Lawson. I don't know. That's just my gut right now.
Yeah, I feel you there. Interceptions, I don't think we're going to get a ton this year. Clay, I mentioned this yesterday on the U Stadium stream. My pick is LaMarcus Joyner, though. I think he has an excellent eye for the football. He's going to be playing deep a lot, which is going to provide opportunities. And then he'll be playing some man coverage on some slot receivers at different times and tight ends. So I think he has an opportunity. Clay, I'll start with you on this one. Who leads the Jets? And do you think anyone gets more than 3 interceptions?
Do you guys need to ask me this question? I think everyone knows where I'm going to go with this. It's got to be Michael Carter II. I've been talking this guy up for so long. If he doesn't start, and if he's not an All-Pro in his rookie year, I'm devastated. No, I was kidding. No, but I do think he has a good chance. I mean, granted, like I don't know who they're going to pick on. Like they're going to pick on every single corner and secondary player in this defense. So it's just a matter of who gets picked on the most and who can capitalize on it the most. And I think Michael Carter, granted, I don't think he had a ton of interceptions off the top of my head. I don't think he had a ton at Duke, but he was around the ball a lot. He was getting PBUs, and I think he can excuse me, I think he can turn those into interceptions. So I'm going to go with Michael Carter II. And anyone watching, just keep tweeting at him until he joins this freaking podcast. I can't. I need to get him on here.
Michael Carter actually, he led all corners in the ACC in passer rating against in 2019. He also was pretty good in that statistic in 2020 in man coverage. So I'm not sure how many times he'll be targeted. I think unless they play Stephon Diggs inside a little bit, which depends on Cole Beasley and his whole situation. But I don't think he's going to get targeted a ton in the AFC East. A lot of the guys are going to be picking on the outside. Kayla, what says you?
I'm just going to go by the numbers because I think that they're going to throw towards Bryce Hall and because he's obviously going to be at least the weakest corner one in the division. And I think that they're going to target him purposefully because he may be good, but he's not really a one. So I think that he's going to get a lot of balls thrown his way simply because of that sheer number of things flying in his direction. Maybe he'll snag a couple. And, he's also been the only guy who, now that Wes Austin's gone, has consistently been considered a starter from the get-go. So we'll leave it to him. I'm going to place some faith in Bryce Hall and hope that he lives up to it.
I want to give a sleeper pick, too. CJ Mosley.
I
think he's a sneaky pick to lead the team in interceptions.
I like that one.
Okay, that's pretty good. I don't mind that at all. All right, so we've gone through some player predictions for the season. I wanted to quickly lead into week one, guys. Obviously, we'll touch on it in much more depth next week in our last show before the season starts officially. The Panthers, I think, in Vegas right now are 4.5-point favorites, which they usually say home field's worth about 2.5 points. So they're a better team than the Jets, everyone thinks, from a betting perspective. The Jets have won. They've lost both their last two week one encounters. What do you think, guys? Are the Jets, do they have a chance to win? And Clay, if you were laying money down right now, head to head, would you take the Panthers or would you take the Jets?
Well, I'm terrible at betting. As much as I think I know about football, I lose money more than I win. So
bet on the Panthers, please.
Well, I've made my one Jets bet for the year and I'm done. I had to quit betting and it just wasn't working. No, to answer your first question, do they have a chance? Yes, they absolutely have a chance. Actually, I just had a Panthers friend of mine ask me the same things. Like, do you realistically think they have a chance? Yes, they realistically have a chance. The Jets aren't I'd like to think they're not the same team as last year where they never had a chance 2 weeks before their game. Like you knew they were going to lose. No, I do genuinely think that they have a chance to win this game. And I think it's going to come down to the trenches. I think it depends on which defensive line can take control of the opposing offensive line. Their offensive line is a lot worse shape than ours. So I think that we can actually get to Darnold. And we know that obviously watching Darnold over the last 3 years, he can get rattled. And hopefully we can be the one that forces him to see ghosts and actually get a couple interceptions. But I do think we have a chance. It's just the only thing that worries me is the firepower they have at the receiver position. They have Robbie Anderson. They have DJ Moore, who I really like. Terrace Marshall is another intriguing player. I'm curious to see how he performs as a rookie. And then you can't forget about Christian McCaffrey, who's running back, receiver, whatever you want. Like, he's obviously incredible. So that's what worries me the most. But I do think it's going to depend on how – especially on our end, how quickly we can get to the quarterback, because the more he's sitting in the pocket, these cornerbacks are not going to be able to hold these receivers for too long. So you got to get to him quick. You got to make him kind of second guess his decision making, and let's go from there. But I think if I'm putting money down on the line or straight up.
Both. Well, however you want to bet. Let's go.
I'll go on the line. The line, it will make me feel a little more safe. I'll pick the Jets on the line just because I think they can at least – if they're going to lose, I think they can lose by a field goal. But I do think they're going to win. I think they're going to win.
All right. Kayla, question in two parts. Who wins, and what's the matchup you think that's going to be most important to dictating that outcome?
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to go right along the line of what Clay was saying. And I said this before on Pace's Playbook, actually, that – I think that the matchup of the Jets D-line, even with the injuries, and the Panthers O-line is super favorable for the Jets. And if they can take that, then I think the game will be more in their control than maybe we'd expect, because I don't have any faith in, even if Sam Darnold plays horribly and they pull him and put somebody else in, what's going to happen? It's not going to get better, I don't think. So I think that the Jets defense, if they could show up and take down that O-line, I think that there's a much better chance than people probably think. It's going to be tough, our offense against their defense. It will be. And I do think, though, that like Zach goes out there and has a better game than Sam. I don't really worry about that. But it's going to be a matter of who can hold it down better in the trenches. I totally agree with you, Clay. And, you know, the issue of I'm far more concerned about McCaffrey than their receivers. But also, if the offensive line is that bad, I mean, there still has to be a place for him to run. So we'll have to see what happens. I don't have a lot of faith, though, in Sam Darnold winning his Panthers debut over Robert Saleh winning his Jets debut. And when I frame it like that in my head, I don't think Saleh's going to go down there and lose to Sam Darnold. I just don't see it happening.
All right, so we're going a Jets win in week 1. Mateus agrees with us. He said 28-24 to the Jets. Hopefully that is correct. It would be nice to see the Jets score 3 or 4 touchdowns. So that would be a great outcome. A few matchups that I'm looking for, I think you both hit the nail on the head. Both teams have fairly weak back sevens, so whoever's front 4 can actually have success against the offensive line is going to be really important to dictating the outcome of that game. And when the Jets go into 2 wide receiver sets, so either playing 21 or 12 personnel, I'm interested to see if the Jets can frame a J.C. Horn, your guy, Kayla, a matchup between him and Elijah Moore. That was an outcome that Lane Kiffin tried to get with Ole Miss, and they had some great success. Obviously, it's a difficult matchup for him with Elijah Moore being a shiftier character and Horn being over 6'1". So I'm intrigued to see if they can frame that matchup at all.
See, that's a struggle for me because I'm not rooting for J.C. Horn to not have a good debut, but I want that Jets win. So it's tough. It's pulling me in both directions.
All right, so that's a bit of a summary of our season predictions, where we think the Jets will be. We had Kayla said the Jets would have 5 wins. I said 6 wins, and Clay said 7. I think we're all kind of in the ballpark, though. Any last thoughts from either of you on what to expect this year or on the 53-man roster?
Yeah, Kayla, go for it.
Like I said before, I think what I really want to zone in on, and what I think fans should zone in on, is the coaching decisions. I think that is going to be the difference maker. And I don't think that the ceiling is super high on what this team can end up doing this season. So I think what you should be looking for is the choices that Saleh makes, the plays that they run that work, don't work, and how they move forward, not making the same mistakes and trying new things, but also improving upon what they've done already. So I think that that's like the major key. And next season is when we can start to kind of like look ahead to how do we stack up against these playoff teams, as opposed to just, are we making good decisions? Can we execute these plays that we want to be executing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And before I get into my point on yours, I think I didn't watch the whole 3rd preseason game, but Robert Saleh was 2 for 2 on challenges. So coaching decisions there, I like it.
How about that?
But all right, quick question for you guys, and I want you to answer as quickly as you can. It's gonna take a second, but as quickly as you can. What is Zach Wilson's rookie stat line at the end of the year?
Gosh.
I did this on a podcast of Play Like a Jet yesterday, so I feel pretty comfortable answering this question. I said a good number for touchdowns. I want 25 touchdowns, 3,700 yards, which is about 213 yards per game. I think that's fairly reasonable expectation, even though they'll run the ball a lot. And if you can have a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, so 12 to 13 interceptions, I think that's a strong year for Zach Wilson. That's still obviously on the higher end, but you're factoring in 17 games. Sam Darnold had, I think, 17 touchdowns to 16 interceptions his rookie year. I think he can do considerably better than that when you factor in the scheme and also the talent.
Okay. Kayla?
Yeah, I'm going to say in the 20 to 25 touchdown range, just because I think they're going to be running it in a lot. But I do think Zach will have a lot more success throwing into the end zone. Interceptions is tough for me because I love him as an accuracy guy, but they're going to have some tough matchups with corners. So I'm going to put him like 10 to 12. And then I want to see him throw for around 200 yards a game. That's what I would like to see.
Clay, you asked the question. Let's flip it back on you.
Yeah, I think he'll end up with 22 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I'm going to say 3,600 yards, go a little less. And is there another stat I'm missing?
Oh, yards per attempt, if you want to go there, fumble, something like that.
I wasn't sure if I was missing any other. But,
I think 7 yards per attempt
how about
would
this?
be good.
I think he'll have a completion percentage greater than 65%.
Completion percentage. The analytics guys are going to be in our comments now. They're going to be giving us all kind of rubbish. Great. that would, I think, if Wilson's in the proximity of any of the stat lines we just said, the three of us, they obviously varied a little bit, but I think that's a really positive season. I think all three were close to a 2 touchdown to 1 interception ratio there. So that's a positive thing. And look, you want to protect the ball, but take enough risks. And Zach Wilson, if we can see that, it's going to be a good season.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, guys, that'll do us for Play Like a Jet Live for this week. We've got 1 episode left before the start of the season. A huge thank you to both Kayla and Clay for being here today. Guys, make sure you're checking out everything we're doing with Play Like a Jet. Kayla referenced her Pacers playbook, which is over on our YouTube. Just type Play Like a Jet in over there. Make sure you're checking out the website, playlikeajet.com. And then make sure you check out everything that U Stadium is doing. I mentioned the hurricane relief episode they did yesterday, a 12-hour stream. That was fantastic. Go and check that out if you haven't already. Shows like Timeout. You've got the Sports Desk with Splash, our producer, 49ers shows. There's a Packers show, plenty of great content. And we'll see you next week as well at 8:15 Wednesday Eastern time. Thanks very much for supporting us. Kayla, Clay, thanks again. We'll see you next week on Play Like a Jet Live.